I'm going to leave my hat on.
Oh, you can leave your hat on.
Yeah.
How do you mean? What? As in you, me?
Like an introduction. Hi, I'm Johan. I'm an underwear model. 21. I live in Stockholm, Sweden. I've been modelling professionally for 7 years. Over to you. Let's introduce ourselves. Welcome to the Onward and Upward podcast with your hosts, Ed and Lee. So the people who don't know who we are can know who we are. And then the people who do know us can roll their eyes and go, oh, fuck it, it's not these pair again, is it? Jesus.
Oh, my God. I'm one half of the dastardly duo that has become Onward over the last maybe 18 months or so. And this episode is really going to talk about, this pilot episode is really going to talk about how it came about, why it came about, and I guess where it's going in the future. But the background on me, I co-own B Road Hunting Club as my other job, if you can call it a job, I guess. It's started as a hobby. But yeah, did 25 years in the army. I've always bounced around, love adventure, love doing things. And as you will find, as this episode I'm sure goes on, I hate being told I can't do something.
It really is very true. I can firmly agree with that. If you don't know me, I'm Lee. I am one half of the dynamic duo that is Onward Experiences, which sort of started as a kind of harebrained, silly, if they can do it, I can do it idea, and has spiraled into where we are today, which is a fledgling business. Essentially, we put together road trips for people and take them on adventures that they might not be comfortable doing themselves, or they might just want some camaraderie, or somebody to goad them, to egg them on, which is where Ed comes in, and that's where we are really. I mean, my profession is I run a creative consultancy, so some of you might know me through some photographs and bits and pieces. That's kind of what I do as my day job. And yeah, this is definitely a sort of a pursuit that has sort of grown beyond even my sort of initial expectations, which is quite exciting. And obviously we're now in a position to kind of push that further. And as Ed sort of alluded to, sort of talk through what our next steps are. So anyway, thank you for joining us. We're glad that you're here. We're glad that you're listening. If you've got any questions, you can feel free to drop us a message or leave a comment, and we can hopefully answer those in any upcoming episodes. So maybe you should tell us what sort of initiated, birthed, conceived this wacky idea that we call Onward Experiences.
Well, I guess that's got to start back in May last year. Was it that long ago? So May.
It's quite scary, isn't it? Because I sort of have to take my shoes and socks off and start kind of doing backward counting. Because it's all like, oh God, this has happened, and so much has happened, which is very exciting and also a bit sort of humbling, really. But yeah, it was May last year. In fact, we're sat in my office, which is at the end of my garden, and I remember vividly the conversation with Ed taking place in a sort of late April about the prospect of going on a tour of the Alps.
Yeah, the sort of last minute. And Nathan from Arkham, right? It was very much like absolutely. Somebody couldn't go because their passport
they hadn't renewed their passport,
hadn't received their renewed passport. In essence, it was like, look, I know that you've potentially have got free time. You're somebody that'd like to come along. Would you like to come along on this trip and sort of take the space? Otherwise, I guess it was, from Nathan's point of view and Horizon Rally, that was a lost opportunity.
I think it's fair to say that obviously those were that was the very early days of that project for him too, and it was a fantastic trip. I guess we can talk about that to some extent too, because it's quite kind of
that was an awesome
integral.
trip.
It's a massive part of kind of spawning what this has become, and so its value can't really be underestimated.
No, but I think that whole trip, like that trip, sort of cemented what we do. Right, the driving with no roof, and it was a bit of tongue in cheek, and you remember the people tooting and waving as we're going down there.
I mean, I wouldn't even say it's tongue in cheek. I just think it's just It's just childishness,
Yeah,
really. It was just a bit of sort of showing off and like, oh, look at us, we're going to do the whole thing without the roof up. Much to like everyone's initial hilarity, we just quickly spiraled into, no, it's absolutely tipping it down. Please put the roof up. You'll get pneumonia. No, it'll be fine.
No.
So yeah, it was. I mean, it was good and terrifying in equal measure. I seem to
Stolen hotel brollies and
yeah, I wasn't thinking of that. I was more thinking like it's great when the sun shines and the roof's down and you're blazing along in Stuttgart's finest, and then you're doing 85 kilometers an hour on the Swiss motorway in hail, and van drivers and builders are heckling and jeering at you. It's slightly different.
But isn't that what makes like that? That's the bit that sticks in my head. I guess like I remember going up and down, obviously the Alps, and that was great.
Had you gone in, let's say, a BMW 1 Series, it would have been a very, very different experience, right? The fact we went in a 25-year-old Gen 1 986 Porsche.
Auto
Tiptronic. And we chose to have the roof down the entire time. Not least of all, I'm not sure whether everyone listening would have seen it, but obviously the car wasn't subtle in any way. It was sort of, I got a sort of kind of a sort of 8-bit retro race livery just to make sure that we definitely stuck out like a sore thumb. And so that kind of, I think that set the precedent really. But that, like you say, that's kind of, obviously you'll have your own perspective on it. I have my own perspective on it too, because I remember you ringing me sat in my office when I was allowed an office in the house before I got booted out, and answering the call and thinking, my go-to here is like, I can't do this. No, it's all right. Thanks for the invite, but I can't come. And something just sort of said inside me, don't say no just yet. Have a conversation, because it might be really exciting. And yeah, in sort of an uncharacteristic move for me, because as I am a professional coward and I can't be frightened because I'm always scared, I didn't say no, and it's now become a bit of a sort of sticking point for me. Is like, if you say no to stuff, opportunities disappear, they vanish.
Is that why we're in this position that we're in now? Because you're afraid to say no now?
Well, we're in the position now, as you know, because absolutely anyone who asks me, I tell them exactly the same. The reason we're in this situation is you're not allowed to go out to play by yourself, and your wife won't go with you. So Muggins here has picked up the shortest straw, and I've basically been lumbered. And I think it's sort of like a kind of mutual care in the community.
Yeah, so it's sort of obviously very apparent that Lee now is my carer. But and if you'd have listened to,
tell me I'm wrong.
If you'd listened to something that came out in the summer, which I guess is the sort of, in some respects, the last thing we did now, if you really skip forward, but I don't want to miss out all the bits in the middle.
No.
You said I was like a drug.
Did I say that?
Do you want to explain that?
One of the things Ed is very good at is being incredibly persuasive without trying very hard at all. I think it's like a sort of X-Men special power. So what you do is you find yourself doing stuff that you wouldn't necessarily do, and not even batting an eyelid about it. So one of my favourite bits of that original Alps trip was you handing me a stack of stickers and going, stick these everywhere when we get to Europe. And I don't know if it's any exaggeration. Must have been about 75 or 100 stickers.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I missed a flat, clean surface anywhere. Whether that was on the toilet seat lids, kind of on the roofs of various buildings, like just everywhere. It's silly and it's childish, but it's fun. So I think that cancels it out really. We've gone off on some adventures and done some stuff and had some trips, and we're sort of going to come to all these things because, as Ed quite eloquently put it, we don't want to skip over too much stuff because there's a lot to talk about. You do these things and it's just, it's a bit like a sort of, you do it, it works out, so you double down, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I guess that's the thing, isn't it? After we did the Alps trip, that stemmed on the way home. It was quite a long drive, like 1,700 miles in what was 4 days?
Yeah.
Like spending a fair amount of time talking about...
Well, I mean, that was stuff, in a car, right? You could have a conversation.
And a crazy thing, yeah. And a crazy thing was, like, equally, like, that was the first time we'd spent any real time together. So that's the other thing you got on. Like, we've known each other for on and off, at car shows, mini events, B road, but we'd not spent any significant time. And one thing that sticks in my head, I remember you saying to me, look, I can talk, and if I get really annoying, they just tell me to shut up. I won't be offended. And I'm thinking, oh my God, you don't know the half of it. Like, if you think you can talk, like, so we were at that point, I guess, was like, yep, this will
I
make
think
for
that's
a
quite
good.
like it's quite an important thing as well. Like, thankfully, we didn't sort of. Well, maybe we did want to kill each other, but we just kept it very quiet and kept a very sort of brave face on things. But like we got on like a house on fire. That really helped. Like that helped massively. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there listening going, I couldn't go on a 90-minute road trip with my family without wanting to kill everybody. So that's quite good in some respects. And like I say, you've got to kind of, I guess you've got to sort of iron out these crinkles as you go along, and sort of, you find out about people and you find out about their sort of nuances and habits and bits and pieces. So, when Ed told me that he was going to pack light and he wasn't going to bring any pants, I thought, oh yeah, of course you're not bringing any pants. No, he really is a commando in commando. And so these sorts of things come to light, and then, obviously that becomes a bit of a running joke, and then it's on to the next thing. So, I mean, May was a properly game-changing turning point thing, and I think, hats off to Nathan and the guys behind the scenes at Horizon Rally who made a brilliant trip, properly brilliant, and inspired this. So I'm sure we've kind of, borrowed some bits, and, we've done sort of an homage to stuff, and that's kind of how we find ourselves here. But we wouldn't be doing any of this if it wasn't for that. And I think
No, definitely not. But I don't think we're just doing it in our own way, right? And I guess which is a nice sort of segue into what we did next, right?
Yeah, true.
So what we did next was we thought we won't go to the Alps. We thought we'd go back to where you grew up, right? Which is Wales, which I guess a lot of people may not know.
Pertinent point as well is that actually, it's all well and good kind of, getting a drawing pin and sticking it in the map and going right there. Actually, the behind the scenes, I remember vividly, Nathan literally up till sort of 1-2 every morning on the trip, just started recalibrating the route. Passes were closed, roads weren't open or under repair. Like there was so much stuff to do. And I think one of the things that we'd sort of said out loud was like, we need to go somewhere that we know.
Yes.
Because that is, yes, you can jump in the car, you can drive wherever you like. It doesn't need a fixed destination. However, the experience is amplified when you have got some working knowledge. And so, so as Ed quite rightly said, we said, right, we're going to go to Wales. I lived in Wales for a long time. I've been there several times since, and, along with some absolutely incredible driving roads. Scenery is stunning. You don't need a passport to go, despite what I told my wife the first time we'd been to Wales. You don't have to worry about those sorts of things. It's almost a kind of, it's a bit like a gateway drug.
Yes.
You can kind of go and do it. You don't have, you don't have to kind of fill in paperwork and bits and pieces. You can literally, you cross the bridge, or you cut across into North Wales, and you're good to go.
Yeah, and from, I guess, we sort of knew what we wanted to get out of it. But we took a couple of guinea pigs, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, guinea pigs get a really bad press, don't they? Like, it's just a small, harmless South American rodent, and it just gets loads of flack. Yeah. No, we were
friends then. Or, well, no, one of them's my brother, so he's way more than a friend. So
related and everything.
And a great friend in our mutual friend
yes.
in Lee McManus, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure they won't mind that we called them guinea pigs, but I do take your point.
No, I mean, I think I having known those guys and spent time with them, I think they would be. I mean, that seems like probably one of the nicest things we could call them. But yeah, we obviously, we kind of worked quite hard, and between May and October seems like a long time, but actually we were working really hard on sort of, shaping the look and feel of our brand and what it stood for, and working on a lot of kind of literature and documentation and artwork and bits and pieces that really sort of helped tell our story that we would use as a jumping off point for this October trip. Because I think one of the things we did quite differently was we kicked off the tour, the road trip as it were, the tour with a tour.
Yeah, that's right.
Tour within a tour.
Which would lead us on to why Onward is synonymous with this brand, right? Which we all know now is Morgan, but we started the tour
quite
or
cryptic,
the trip.
though.
I know, it was good. We started it with, and we never told them either, did we? We didn't tell Lee, we didn't tell Matt.
No,
we just sort of.
It was a very dark, wet, foreboding morning at Cobham Services on the M25, and we'd arranged to meet them there. We arranged to meet Lee there and pick your brother up en route because obviously he lives in Swindon. But I remember driving in the dark in the Porsche with the roof down because the roof was never allowed up after the outstrip. It's basically a forbidden thing. Meeting Lee at the services, and we were really excited about one aspect, which turned out to be one aspect that he was very sort of indifferent to.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, we've got these cool T-shirts, and we've made you a T-shirt that's like your car, and da-da-da. And he was like, oh, okay. And then we mentioned that we were kicking off proceedings in a couple of hours' time at the Morgan factory tour, and he literally lost his mind.
Yeah,
he was dancing around in the car park in the dark. It was hilarious. We should have videoed that. It would be quite funny. In fact, we might have some pictures. We've got some pictures that help sort of punctuate the story a bit. Maybe we should add those in. And that was it. So it was a drive then, wasn't it? We were in two cars, your Porsche, Lee's Porsche.
Yeah.
And
picked my brother up at Broughton, which was comical in itself because the car was
quickly filling up. Yeah. I've got pictures at that petrol station of people just giving us very odd looks.
And it sticks in my mind now that Matt got a taxi from his house because it was easier than going into his village and coming back out because it would have just added time to his journey. It simplified it. But I remember standing there with a coffee from Greg's or Costa in this garage, and Matt getting out in a pair of shorts and a waterproof jacket, and then going, "You are putting the roof up, right?" Like, no. That's not how we roll. And he's like, "Well, I'm going in the GPS."
Yeah, he called shotgun before the conversation even sort of got underway. Like, I'm going in that one. I mean, there are so many lovely little sort of side stories and sub chapters to this, though, because this was at a point where your brother was speccing and had put down a deposit and stuff on a Macan GTS in red.
He was still very, very unsure at that point.
I mean, I still to this day, every time I see a Macan GTS, just chuckle to myself. Essentially, after sort of bemoaning the roof down, oh, what are you doing? You must be mad.
Like you said, every time you see a GTS now, and I know, like he'd very much placed an order. He didn't know whether it was crayon grey, I know, with red seats, or red with black, or.
But you know, like with red seats, that's a vibe, isn't it?
There's a vibe, right? And I remember going to Reading with him and seeing one in the car park and going, well, actually, yeah, if you're going to go down that route. But then looking at, the new GT4 RS, a vanilla 911, so like a 911 with virtually no spec at all, and just.
Didn't he check out some resto mod thing as well?
Yeah, he looked at a really nice 912 that had been restored, but. When he drove it, it was like, it wasn't really what he was after.
Right.
But this is all, like we're missing out the bit in the middle, right? This is all after I'm getting a GTS. I don't want to sit in a convertible car in the rain when we went to Wales. In a pair of shorts, I'll add.
Yeah.
I mean, who goes to Wales in October in a pair of shorts?
Your brother.
Yeah. But he's the only person I know that goes on a golf course with hand warmers because he gets cold. I mean, I never really understood how he went to Wales and stood on that beach in a pair of shorts with me, you, and Lee, like trussed up to the nines.
Sorry, we took a little bit of a segue there. We're just having a conversation about
cutlery.
God, we're old. There's clearly sort of like a kind of an unwritten rule where you have like stuff for best.
Yeah.
And it is great and lovely, and it is just like the top of its game. But you're not allowed to use it apart from extremely special occasions.
And the only way that ties into cars is, as you said, is like that is the definition of a garage. Well, no, you're missing.
I've got my Porsche GT3 RS, but I only use it if the temperature is above 28 degrees. I need 2 weeks of consistent weather, and then they sort of open their front door, touch the ground, and then lick the tip of their finger just to sort of get a feel for the sort of air humidity.
And we all know who those people are.
We're not going to say their names.
To go back, that's not what we're about, though, right? Like, that's not.
No, I mean, you touched on it earlier. Like, we crossed paths several moons ago, through like the mini scene and stuff as sort of enthusiastic mini owners. And I think we've had this conversation before, but it's probably one for making sure it goes down in sort of. Audio history is that we've done all the shows. I don't know, I feel like I've done every mini show ever multiple times over the course of like a decade.
Yeah, I mean, I've done every mini show at least twice, if not more.
Yeah, I'm sure violently agreed on this before as well. It's like the funnest bit is firing up the car while it's still dark and then driving for 3 hours to get somewhere
Yeah.
with your mates, and everyone sort of peels in en route and falls into the convoy.
I mean,
anyway, we were waffling.
Yes,
as
that was
as
a
is our
segue,
want.
wasn't it?
That was a massive segue.
Cut that out, Luke.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the. That's going to be all over the chopping room floor. So we'd scooped everyone up. We told them what we were up to, where we were going, and what our kind of first port of call was. And this it wasn't our first trip.
No, it was our first trip to the Morgan factory.
Really?
Yeah, I remember sitting in your office when we were going over the finer detail, and unlike me, because that's not how I am, it's like, oh, well, why don't we take a trip to Morgan while on our way to Wales? And you went, oh, that'd be a good idea. How much is it? Before I could tell you, I'd already bought 4 tickets.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yes, I do remember that. Yeah, and thankfully that sort of approach, that gung ho approach, has continued for pretty much everything. In fact, as recently as yesterday afternoon.
Yeah,
so that is definitely another episode. We haven't got there yet. So we were blazing a trail towards the Malvern Hills, which is amazing. And I sort of say this every time, but if you haven't done it, do it. It's amazing. It really is. Just even if antiquated British-built cars aren't a thing, just the whole handmade care and having something made by human hands and seeing it all unfold is just it's another level. It really is.
I genuinely, the process, and like Malvern is a wicked place to go. Right, very modern, very up to date. The factory maybe not as much, but it has been there for over 100 years. But I don't think anything we say in this podcast could do the tour justice in. I mean, it's amazing.
It's a 2-hour tour, like a 2-hour intensive tour.
You have to go and do it yourself to really appreciate.
And then you definitely have to have a club sandwich.
Yes. 100%.
Oh,
the Morgan Club sandwich.
Didn't we have about 3 trips in the space of about as many weeks?
So we went.
Must have overdosed on.
Yeah, I mean, again, so we went and did that. Then we went back. Then we had a meeting with Morgan about some crazy stuff we were doing with Morgan.
We'll come to that.
And then we went back again. We went back again to collect my Morgan.
Oh yeah.
Within a space of 3 days. Well, I don't know why we couldn't go and collect. No, because we saw my Morgan at the factory as well.
But we must have done 2 trips within about a week of each other, because we've gone up in my car, and then we went up again, and that was collecting your car.
Yeah.
So this is October. We're in Wales. It was absolutely a ghost town, but then it's a tourist place, right? So there is nobody there. It meant that basically the whole place was a playground.
It was brilliant because it was
so good.
And do you know what? The weather wasn't bad. It had stopped raining by the Saturday, right?
I think it's fair to say conditions meant that when we got breaks in the day, it was like the greatest reward. I remember blazing from Malvern towards the Elan Valley, and then onwards up to it's a name drop there, up to North Wales and the beach, and just seeing this like streak of sunshine on the horizon. It's just like, it's going to be amazing, and it was.
We've touched on, and I guess is where we bring it back, right, to the whole irony of Matt having a Porsche GTS and not wanting to sit in a 25-year-old Boxster with the roof off. I threw him the keys on day 2 and was like, here you go for broke. Right, enjoy it, understand it, get it. I never got another look in.
No, he did. He did a proper brotherly hogged it, didn't he? Big time. And he was grinning.
Yeah, grinning.
Like a Cheshire cat when we got to the beach. It wasn't even a thing. Like,
well, let's not talk about the Sandman and how the Sandman got his... Because we need to cover the hill to the Airbnb that we booked.
Let's rewind a little bit then. So Malvern was amazing, and it is brilliant. Like, seriously, I can't stress enough. You've got to go if you have even a passing interest in cars or motor vehicles or engineering. Or go. It will blow your mind. It is amazing. So that was Malvern. Then it's down sort of across Mid Wales. We'd hired blindly an Airbnb Problem.
I'll take the hit on this. This is my fault.
Well, no, because I don't think it's anyone's fault. Ultimately, it is what it is. I think the thing is with Wales is it's because of its sort of geographical makeup. It's sort of like it's like the direct opposite of Norfolk. I always love sort of, and growing up there, I always loved the sort of the kind of postcard that said if Wales was flat, it would be bigger than England, and it really would be.
Yeah,
because it's so up and downy and windy and twisty. I mean, especially because we've driven some crazy hairpin roads and switchbacks and bits and pieces. I feel like we should have been better prepared, but the path up to that B&B was absolutely hideous. I think it would have been hideous in your new Land Rover. I've got to be honest.
No, I do, and I still can't get what Lee McManus said to me when he got out, and the look he gave me at the top of that.
He wasn't impressed.
No, he was not impressed at all. So the Airbnb is on the top of a mountain. Well, I say mountain, very big hill.
A big hill, yeah.
The turning off the road didn't really phase. It was a nice, gentle slope on tarmac until you got to the first hairpin, of which there was about 6.
Yeah,
maybe.
It's got to be 5 at least, I would say. I think as well is what you have to remember to help sort of add a splash of dimension to this picture is that obviously the steeper the hill, the more switchbacks you need to sort of ascend without sort of basically driving your car 90 degrees up a rock face. But obviously the path has been well used, and because obviously at the top all the vehicles are sort of 4x4 type vehicles with sort of like lifted. No, trust me, there's nobody had slammed their car on the air and thought, you know what, I'm going to live here, because it's the noise. It was the noise of the rocks and the rubble grinding whatever was left underneath the car.
Yeah, you've missed out the fact that I took my slammed Boxster up there. Like, but when I raised it to go on the Europe trip, I raised it 10 mil.
That much?
Yeah, I know.
And then you put our chunky asses in there. I mean, that car was low driving down the street by my house.
On the way up the hill, with the fight, I ground out twice, like where I thought we might have to. I mean, not as bad as Monte Carlo, but again, that's another chapter in this podcast. God.
Just honestly, all these things just like are just designed to sort of shave years off your life.
I know they are.
The noise, that is the bit.
It was awful.
Just goes straight through to your bones, doesn't it?
And I do remember you were sitting in Lee's car, weren't you, at this point? And Matt was in with me.
I couldn't tell you because I think I had my hands over my face and I was just looking through the tiny slit between my fingers, thinking, "Please be over. Please don't be another turn."
And I do remember getting to the top and getting out and going and looking at Lee, going, "Is everything all right?" And he went, "I just hope it's better on the way down." Yeah. And that's when reality struck. It was like, "Oh, we're here for 3 days. This could be."
Yeah, I mean, hats off, really. I think I would have just cried.
Yeah.
And called in a sort of airlift.
However, I made up for it when we went in and we found we got tucked into the Airbnb, and I cooked up a storm.
You did.
I cooked up a very nice. I can't remember what it was. Was it smoked mackerel?
It was linguine, yeah.
And we had a few beers, and we sat in this really nice cottage, and then we sort of came clean, didn't we, that evening? That look, well, this is what you're here for. We'd like your comments, right?
Yeah, you were part of our experiment,
and it sort of spawned this very long, honest conversation with those two, which I won't go into because it's not fair. But
well, that's all the secret stuff as well. If you tell everyone the secrets, crikey, where are we? We've got nothing. I think certainly by the second night, the sort of feedback was very, in a very positive, constructive way, was super free flowing, and the guys both brilliantly, thankfully, got right behind exactly what we were striving, aiming, aspiring to do, and some of the suggestions and ideas and comment were just invaluable and have certainly helped shape, what it is today and what it will be going forward. I think that that we can't underestimate that.
No, definitely not. And
brilliant thing.
What it did do after that conversation, the next day, they really got behind it, didn't they? They got behind when we went down the Elan Valley. We went for a breakfast, and the feedback was almost instant, right? When we went down the Elan Valley and we had a good laugh up and down there. Then we made our way to...
The bit that goes around the reservoir, and you go up the top of the hill and there's that car park.
Yeah.
You know the thing I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Annoyingly, I can't think of the name, but I can drive you there, definitely. I remember Lee leaping out of his car going, physically shaking and just going, oh my God, that might be the greatest road I've ever driven. New car, very long at all, had he? He hadn't had the cane for very long.
Do you know what, now what's really interesting is that I hadn't really thought about it until we started discussing it. We did that first trip with you in a different car to me. I was with my brother, he was with Lee.
Yeah.
So you'll have had a slightly different experience to me.
Oh, it was luxury, mate. Absolute
What,
luxury.
because you had a roof?
That was such a sort of palpable, tangible, brilliant thing to just because this is exactly what we wanted to do, right? We wanted to do these things and people to be as enthused and excited as us about it.
But I do remember at lunch, so we did some cracking roads all right up till lunch. We had a wicked steak sandwich that the name of the pub escapes me.
Oh, the Cross Foxes.
The Cross Foxes.
Yeah, they're furious.
But I remember getting in the car and you sort of pulling me to not pulling me to one side, but sort of holding back, going, I don't think Lee wants to go on the beach in his new car. It was fair to say, wasn't it?
I mean, if it was my new car, I think I'd have my reservations as well. All these things they are sort of, and even from our own sort of perspective, they are, you do need to sort of push your own sort of boundaries a little bit. It's sort of, try it, say yes, you might really enjoy it. However, you've just spent all this money on a very nice, shiny new car. I totally get it.
No, I 100% get it. But I guess the point I was getting at, by the time we got to the beach, and...
Oh, you wouldn't have stopped him?
No, we couldn't get him off the beach in the end, could we?
No, we
and
really
that's
couldn't.
what I mean. It was it's just that, do you know what? I'm getting involved.
The fact he got out of the car and proceeded to do sand angels on the beach.
Yeah.
Just sort of with a big
we've
grin.
definitely got to find those
Yeah,
pictures.
no, we've got those. That's absolutely fine. That's it, isn't it? It's just kind of we left there after a weekend with both those guys going, when can we go again? Almost to the point of I think they were cross that we didn't have
another date
set in stone to go again in this amount of time. And it was...
Probably now want to know what Matt ended up doing about his McCann GTS and why we find it so ironic and funny.
Should we go to an advert break and keep them waiting for just a minute? We'll be back.
Isn't that what the big boy
did? After these messages from our sponsors. Welcome back, dear listener.
Matt, in that week, wasn't it? It was fair to say he was on it.
He was like a dog with a bone.
Yeah.
like you've never seen. And the fact is, I remember us banging on in only the way that we can, which means that we were doing it every waking moment. Was
relentlessly.
Just get a cheap, cheerful Boxster. That's all you need.
Yeah.
That's what you need. Cheap, cheerful Boxster is perfect. It's it's not a huge investment. You'll have a load of fun. You won't be precious about it. And then he turns up with a 718 Spider.
Yeah.
It's what the actual hell?
Thank you for listening to the Onward and Upward podcast. I've been Ed. He's been Lee. Join us next time for more stories of adventure.